Hello, and today we are going to talk through caffeine. What is it? How does it work in the body? And how can I use this responsibly? So, first and foremost, what is caffeine? It's a natural stimulant. It is found in things like coffee, some teas, chocolate, even, and it serves a role and it can be incredibly beneficial for things like performance. But let's understand how it works so we know how we can use it best in our situation. So when you ingest caffeine, you drink your coffee, energy drink, whatever it might be. Even some people take caffeine pills. Some people have medication that has a component of caffeine in it. It gets into our bloodstream as we digest it. From there, it travels to our brain, and that's where it starts to work. So the primary way that caffeine works is by blocking receptors to a neurotransmitter known as adenosine. Now, what is adenosine's job? Adenosine's job is to help us know when we are fatigued or to help us feel fatigued, drowsy, all of those things. So if you think about kind of what's happening, it's blocking receptors so that those transmitters can't attach to the receptor and it can't alert us that we're fatigued, right? Other things that happen as a result of that is because blockade has been put up, so to speak, it also can increase other productions like adrenaline, right? So then we might see heart rate increase a little bit, blood pressure might increase a little bit. This results in us feeling more energized and more alert because that's something that happens when we want to feel more alert, right? If we think about what happens when we go into fight or flight, blood pressure increases, heart rate increases to help us feel more engaged with our surroundings. So that is how caffeine functions in the body. Now, there are benefits to this, right? For instance, because it increases that alertness, we might be able to focus better. We might be able to get more things done because we don't feel fatigued, cloudy, or drowsy. Can also help with physical performance because if we feel better and we're more alert, it's going to help us lift stronger, run faster, play our sport better. Two other things we can see is more of a diuretic effect. So sometimes people have to go to the bathroom. Sometimes people have to pee more frequently after they have caffeine. And it can kind of stimulate gastric acid secretion, which once again just plays into that same thing. So that is kind of what is going on internally once we ingest it. How does it get out of our body? This is where I see a lot of people not necessarily navigate it the best. So caffeine has a half-life. If you're not familiar with what a half-life is, it means that it's the amount of time it takes for half of that component to exit the body. So I'm going to use a very simple example. Let's say that you hit a 1 p.m. slump. It's just after lunch. You're like, oh, I still have like 3-4 more hours of work. I need an energy drink, right? So you go and you get like a Monster. I think there's like 175 milligrams. For math's sake, let's just say it's 200 milligrams of caffeine that you put back at 1 p.m. Well, the half-life of that could range depending on a lot of factors, including age, genetics, right? Some of us have more of certain types of enzymes that can handle caffeine. Some of us go through caffeine a little bit faster, slower. Frequency in alcohol drinking or the liver being overburdened, that can slow clearance time down. So all of those things into effect, the average half-life is anywhere from 3 to 5 hours. That's the average. So let's say it's 4. Let's just go midline. At 1 p.m., you consume 200 milligrams of caffeine. 4 hours later, so at 5 p.m., when you're logging off work, you still have 100 milligrams of caffeine left circulating, right? And a half-life continues progressively like that. So that means as you're getting closer to bed, in those evening hours, you might have equivalent to a cup of coffee left in your system. And I've seen people push it back even farther and drink 2 or 3, right? Like PM having caffeine. So you can see how this could then inhibit your ability to feel fatigued, to feel drowsy, to feel like you can prepare for bed. And then that causes your sleep to suffer, which then leads into the next day and same thing happens. And for those of you who are like, well, I never drink caffeine that late, but I do have 3 cups of coffee, but I cut it off at noon. Think about the amount of caffeine and then cut that in half. You still might have larger amounts than desired of caffeine in your system towards the evening, right? So how can you use caffeine to your benefit? First, always you want to use in moderation. You don't want to be consuming too much caffeine. From personal experience, when I was in the Navy serving on the ship, I was drinking over 1,000 milligrams of caffeine a day, sometimes close to 1,500 milligrams. That is not what you want to do. I promise you from experience, right? You want to keep it to a cup to 2 cups equivalent a day. If you're using it for performance sake, obviously there are different ways that you can approach this. There's caffeine, there's dicaffeine malate, there's slow release caffeine, there's other forms of energy you can incorporate. If you're somebody who trains in the evening and it's like, I need that energy boost to train at night, I want you to think twice about that. There are other ways that we can get you alertness and focus that might help with your performance versus just pouring caffeine into your system. Other things to do is, like I said, cut caffeine off by a certain time. 11 is a really good time for most people to cut it off. If you need an energy boost in the afternoon, push water, push electrolytes, right? I really encourage people to take a chunk of time off of caffeine, let it kind of get out of your system, let your body get used to it, and move from there. If you feel like you are slow to clear caffeine, right? Like if you feel like, oh wow, you're talking about some of these like genetics or like my liver, it's really great to kind of come off caffeine and maybe push specific nutrients that are really helpful for your liver if you're not already, right? A healthy diet is a diverse diet, so hopefully you are already getting in tons of fiber, leafy greens, things of that nature. But doing 2 weeks of a little bit of a caffeine pause, focusing on really hydrating your body, electrolytes, and focusing on improving sleep is going to be your best bet. If you want recommendations of other forms of energy or other ways that you can improve your alertness and focus, drop it in the chat and we could talk through different options if you are in need of some form of support with energy and focus for training or work, but you also acknowledge that you think it's poorly affecting your sleep. Foundations, 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 always. If we can work to improve sleep to help improve energy and focus, that is what we want to do. We don't want to band-aid slap caffeine on the problem, block those receptors, and cause your body to produce other things to help keep you awake if we don't have to. So hopefully you found this helpful. Drop questions, comments, concerns, or follow-up trainings that you would like in the world of caffeine.